Hello everyone and welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to do everything from the ground up. Today's episode is another ceramics episode, and it is all dedicated to this cute little guy, the gnome. This is one of 5 garden gnomes that I had made to put out in my garden. But today I'm going to show you how to make one of these garden gnomes yourself. This material, to be able to put it out in the garden, you will want to make sure that you do get it fired in an actual ceramic place. If you do not have a local community center that offers ceramic classes, another good place to go is to a community college that has really inexpensive courses and ceramic facilities. You may be able to actually have your pieces fired without having to take a course. That depends on you going and speaking to them. Also, there are a lot of little local businesses cropping up that do firing of ceramics. So anyway, this is going to be a very simple coil method combined with a little bit of slab work for the hat. So let's get started. I have a little bit of leftover slab that I have rolled out and prepared earlier for another project that I was working on. So I just need to find something round, and I'm just going to use the lid of my slip container here to trace out a circle from this slab. If you've never prepared a slab before, it's literally just taking a chunk of clay and either rolling it through a slab roller or using a rolling pin to kind of smack it down and roll it out as if you were rolling out some dough for some pie. I'm going to go ahead and take this lid and use it to trace a base using my fettling knife to come around, and first thing I'm going to do is just trace around before I make the actual cut. Once I've done that, I can remove my lid, see my line, and then come in with the knife and make a deeper cut all the way around. And I have one of these turntables. You do not have to work on a turntable. Certainly a basic board with some newspaper on it will do you fine. So now I have my base all set up on a piece of newspaper and hopefully on a board. And then I'm going to grab my brush. And we need some fresh wet clay. And I am going to just take a chunk of that fresh wet clay. And I am going to squish that chunk down till I get close to the thickness that I would like, and my goal here is to get something that is just slightly thicker than this handle. I don't want to go too much thinner because it's going to take longer to build, and then also trying to aim for something that's just slightly thicker than this so that when I blend it out it ends up not being any thicker than this handle, because if it is, there's a chance that it will explode in the kiln. And I'm looking at it and it's close to where I want it to be. Now I'm going to use the palms of my hand, and I'm going to start in the center. I'm not using my fingers, it's the palms of my hands, and I'm just putting a little bit of pressure onto the coil, and as I'm doing so I am moving in my hands in an outward motion. Now I usually tell my students to imagine you have a raw egg under your hands, because if you are pushing with too much pressure you'd crack that egg. That's how much pressure you want to put on this coil when you're smoothing it out. You're really just kind of getting it into shape. Alright, the next step is to slip and score this first layer. I'm going to apply some slip to the base of this piece, and then this gets smacked on and I begin to coil around. Now when I come to this edge, I'm just going to keep going and stack right on top. Before I get too far, I want to make sure that I blend in that very first layer onto the base of that piece, both on the inside and the outside. I'm going to take my fettling knife and I'm just going to squish down. I'm then going to take my finger, and on the inside with using my thumb, I'm just going to squish down just a little bit of that inside all the way around so that I can get it pressed down. I want to make sure that I don't end up with a detached base. Now I can continue to make some coils. If you're going to do this all in one sitting and do it fairly quickly for the base, you don't need to slip and score anymore, because the clay you're adding on top of itself is going to be this fresh, soft clay. So you don't have to worry about going in and slipping and scoring each layer. In fact, if you were to do that now at this point, you'd end up with something that would really start becoming too unstable and wobbly, because it would be very wet adding that extra slip. When I added this coil overlap, I did stack it slightly to the outside edge of this coil because I want to make it a little bit of a ball coming out before I come on in. And so to do that, I am just stacking this coil slightly on the outside, and then I'm going to do that one more go round. And it doesn't matter if you start and stop in different places. In fact, you want to think of this more like bricklaying. You don't want it to end every single section at the same spot. It's best to have it staggered all around because then that way it's going to be more stable. So now that I have quite a bit on there, I'm going to go ahead and blend the outside by taking chunks of this clay and pulling it downward. In doing so in this downward motion, it's going to naturally want to make the form kind of kick out. I'm not worried about how messy this is because I'm actually going to be putting texture on it. So for the case of this, I don't really care, but if you wanted to smooth it out, I could use one of my ribs. These guys are ribs, right? This was a serrated rib. It has the teeth on it. That's what I used to score, but you could use the back side of that. You could use a wooden one. That would work just as well, or a rubber one, which I really like. Because this gnome is meant for the outside, I really want this to be strong. So I am going to additionally blend the inside of my layers. Now, if I blend down here, it's going to want to pull my sides up and in, and that's not necessarily what I want because I am trying to keep this little rounded kind of poof thing happening. I'm going to be blending this up, so I'm pulling it up toward me. It's going to be tough with that top one without wanting to rip the whole thing off, so I'm just kind of keeping pressure with my thumb here as I blend up. And if I do need to blend down, I'm trying to make sure that I don't, adjust the outside coming in. I don't want to change the direction that it's currently going. Now, I think I have it coming out enough of where I want it to be. I'm just going to have it peek in just a tiny bit before I go ahead and get that hat on. This coil I am going to be stacking just slightly on the inside. I need this to not flap around because I'm going to start texturing this piece now. I have this funky tool which I think was probably to mix hair dye or something. It's either that or it was used for something in the kitchen. No idea. Somehow I came across it. It's in my tool bin. I try to find random things that wherever I can that will do different textures. I'm not sure how this is going to go because I haven't quite used it before, but I do know what this wire brush does, and it actually will make something that looks more like a woodsy texture. So I'm going to take this wire brush and just come in. This is just a wire brush that I actually got at the 99-cent store. It's used for cleaning. I think that's a bit shaggy. Alright, I think I'm satisfied with that texture. I'm going to clean up this tabletop a bit and grab some slab to show you how to make the hat that goes on top of this guy. Alright, so I got some slab and I have a very technical way of sorting out how much of this you need to cut in order to make the gnome. And that is to have some of my garden twine that I raided. I'm just going to take this piece of twine and guide it around here. And it meets here. And we'll cut that amount. And I just need to make sure that the length of my triangle is at least the length of that string, which it looks like it's okay from there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim this line. And then I'm just going to cut basically a giant triangle from end to end here. I'm going to be slipping and scoring this little triangle together like so. And I think I'm going to grab a bunch of newspaper so I can shove it into the cone and have it help stabilize it. Now I just want to make sure I blend this really well. Come in with my rubber rib, make sure I really get that seam. I think I'm going to cut it right about here. Make sure I pull all of that out. And then while I can, I'm just going to come in and blend whatever I can reach from that internal seam line just to get it good and stuck on there. And then here's where the magic happens. I am just taking my fingers, flipping it upright, curving it a bit. I think that looks pretty good there. Score and slip that bit on. Before I do that, I'm just going to go in and cut in my air hole at the bottom to make sure that this thing doesn't blow up, because once I pop that hat on, it's going to become one solid chamber. The reason why I am slipping and scoring this part is because that slab is a different consistency than this fresh clay that went on. And then I need to determine where a good place to stick that nose would be. I have a creature without a nose. Looks to me like this is the front, so the nose got to be somewhere around here. Spin that around for you slowly so you can see what I'm seeing. This feels very much so like the back, what you're seeing now. And then for me, what feels much like the front is this side. I'm just taking a chunk of clay that I've rolled into a ball, and then I am going to squish it to an oval, flatten it a bit, and then just pinch a little spot here. So I have something that's very nose shaped, but this is a bit too thick. So now that I've done that, I can just take the fettling knife and cut it in half. And I like to do this thing where sometimes I flip up the hat, and so it looks like his nose is kind of like resting right under. I will probably finish this off just like the other one, where I will only glaze the hat and leave the base of it raw. I really like that with these particular pieces, but that's pretty much it. My little garden gnome. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have not done so, please subscribe so you can see many more videos to come.